Do you know in 2018, Indians had about 2.2 crore pets, and today that number has become close to 4 crore pets. That is almost double the number of pets in just about 7 years. And if you include cats specifically, then the growth has been even more crazy. The cat population in urban India has grown by almost 80% in this same time period. Now mind you, these are massive numbers, and they tell us that something very important is changing in how we Indians live and what we care about. And one company has noticed this shift very carefully. A few months ago, Reliance quietly launched a pet food brand called Waggies. And if you have been following Reliance's playbook over the years, you know that when they enter a market, it usually means that they are about to shake things up completely. So the obvious question then is, why pets? Why now? And what does Reliance really see in this industry that makes them decide to enter? In this video, I will decode exactly that. We'll understand why India's pet industry is suddenly exploding, what Reliance's strategy with Waggies really is, and what this means for pet owners, brands, and the industry as a whole. My name is Anurag Bansal. This video has been made possible thanks to the support of Zerodha 01 Media Network. Let's decode. Now, before we get into understanding why Reliance is getting into pet food, we'll first need to understand something that is much bigger. We need to understand why pets have suddenly become so important to us Indians. See, if you go back 15 to 20 years from now, having a pet in India was very different from what it is today. Dogs were mostly guard dogs who stayed outside the house, or there used to be society dogs that multiple families would casually feed with leftover food. And cats were usually just stray cats who you would occasionally probably give milk to. And at that time, even the idea of spending thousands of rupees on packaged pet food would have sounded completely ridiculous to most people. But today, if you walk into any urban apartment complex, you will find people who treat their pets like family members. You will notice people carrying their dogs in little bags when they travel, and you will hear conversations about pet health and nutrition almost as casually and as frequently as people discuss their own health and well-being. So something fundamentally has clearly changed, and to understand this particular change, we will need to take a look at how India itself is changing as a society. See, India's family structures are transforming very quickly. According to government data, the share of nuclear families in India has been rising quite fast. It was around 56% in 2016, it crossed 58% by 2020, and in fact in some southern states, nuclear families now make up almost 70% of all households. So joint families in some sense are becoming nuclear families, and nuclear families are now becoming couples living alone. And in a lot of cases, young professionals are living by themselves in cities that are hundreds of kilometers away from their hometowns. Now think about what this means emotionally. See, earlier when you came home after a long day, there would be parents, there would be siblings, maybe grandparents around you. There was always somebody to talk to, somebody to share a meal with, and somebody who cared about how your day went. But today, increasingly for millions of young Indians living alone in metro cities, coming home usually means coming back to an empty apartment. And this is where pets have become very important. See, for a generation like ours, which is dealing with urban isolation and loneliness, pets have become incredibly important sources of emotional support and companionship. And this emotional shift is very clearly visible in numbers as well. Like I mentioned earlier, India's pet population has nearly doubled in the last 6 to 7 years. Dogs dominate and they make up around 88% of all pets, but cats are the fastest growing segment. Their numbers have gone up by around 80 to 90% in some urban areas. And what is interesting is that people are not just getting more pets, they are also spending more money on them. To give you numbers again, India's pet care market is currently worth around $3.5 billion US, which is roughly 30,000 crore rupees, and it's expected to double to around $7 billion by 2028. That is a growth rate of about 15 to 20% every year, which is 2 to 3 times faster than most traditional FMCG categories like soaps or packaged foods. And I've actually seen this firsthand as well. My wife runs an eco-friendly bags company called Earth Safe Bags, and one of their product lines is a customized tote bag where pet parents can get their pets' photos printed on a bag. And honestly, the kind of care that people put into selecting the perfect photo, the back and forth that they do to get the design right, the emotional messages they send when they receive the final product, all of that is honestly insane to see. It really tells you how deep this bond has become today. But even if you keep that part aside, what is more exciting is if you compare India to other countries in terms of pet ownership. See, the headroom for us is insane. India, to give you numbers, has around 0.1 pets per household. household. Japan has 0.28 and the United States has 1.06. So we are miles behind other countries when it comes to pet ownership. And I think that is the kind of structural opportunity that is getting Reliance excited about this opportunity. Now within the pet care segment as well, there are broadly three categories where most of the money is spent: healthcare, grooming and food. And together, these three make up almost 80% of all pet related spending. And among these three as well, food is particularly interesting because while healthcare has a higher per transaction value, food has the highest frequency in terms of buying behavior. Pet owners buy food regularly, sometimes every week or every month. And that makes it the perfect category for building brand loyalty and retail relationships. And this is probably why Reliance chose to enter the pet care industry through food first. But here is the interesting part: despite this incredible growth, the pet food market in India is still dominated by a very few large players. Mars is the biggest name in this space. They own two of the most popular pet food brands in India, which is Pedigree and Royal Canin. And they built a distribution network of more than 70,000 retail touchpoints across the entire country. Now that is a massive differentiator that they have built over many decades. Nestle is also in this game with brands like Drools and Pure Pet, and there are also a bunch of other players at different price points. But the interesting thing here is how the market is structured in terms of pricing. See, at the premium end, you have Royal Canin, which sells at around 1000 rupees per kg. Then you have Pedigree at around 300 rupees per kg, and at the more affordable end, you have brands like Drools at around 180 to 200 rupees per kg. And this is also where Reliance probably saw a very big opening. See, if you've been following Reliance over the years, you know that they have a very specific playbook for entering new markets. They did it in the space of telecom with Jio, they did it in the space of retail through Reliance Retail, they are doing it in soft drinks through Campa. And the playbook has honestly always been the same. First, they identify a market where current players have become settled or complacent. Second, they enter with very aggressive pricing that is lower than other existing players. Third, they leverage their massive distribution network to reach consumers that other brands simply cannot afford to reach. And fourth, they play the long game, which means they are willing to operate at low margins or even losses for that matter until they have captured significant market share. And this is exactly what they seem to be doing with Waggies as well. To give you a reference, Waggies is launching at around 199 rupees per kg, and Waggies Pro, which is their slightly premium variant, is at around 249 rupees per kg. Now compare this to Pedigree at 300 rupees per kg or Royal Canin at 1000 rupees per kg. The price difference is pretty decent, and this is especially the case when you consider the portion size. See, a medium-sized dog eats around 300 grams of pet food per day, which means about 9 to 10 kgs per month. So even a small price difference per kg could effectively mean savings of hundreds of rupees per month for a household. So that is the game that Reliance seems to be playing here. But this time things are slightly different. Reliance is not the only one playing the value game this time around. Nestle's Drools is already in the market at around 180 rupees per kg. That's in fact slightly cheaper than Waggies. So the competition at the affordable end is not going to be a walkover for Reliance. So that basically makes it two giants, Reliance and Nestle, going head to head against each other at similar price points. And that battle is going to be a very interesting one to watch out for. But anyway, Reliance has one advantage that even Nestle cannot easily match, and that is their distribution network. See, Reliance already has more than 15,000 retail stores across India through their various formats. They have partnerships with millions of Kirana stores through JioMart, and they have a logistics infrastructure that can move products to virtually every corner of the country. And for a new pet food brand, building this kind of distribution from scratch would take years and cost thousands of crores of rupees. But for Reliance, it is already there and existent. Loosely speaking, they just have to add one more product to their existing trucks and they are done. And this very distribution advantage, ladies and gentlemen, allows them to price aggressively while still maintaining margins that would be almost impossible for a standalone pet food company to achieve. But that's not all. Here is where Reliance's strategy gets even more interesting. See, when we think about pets, we usually think about people who own dogs or cats as formal registered pets. But honestly, the market is slightly bigger than that. Think about your own neighborhood for a second. How many people do you know who regularly feed stray dogs or community cats? A lot of people, right? Maybe these people don't own pets in a formal sense. Maybe the dog sleeps outside and not in their home, but they still buy food for them, they still take them to the vet occasionally, and they still feel genuine emotional attachment to them. This segment honestly is almost completely invisible in traditional market research. Some estimates suggest that India has more than 15 to 20 million street dogs that are regularly fed and cared for by households across our country. And like I said, these are not pets in the traditional sense, but the emotional bond is still very real, and the spending behavior is surprisingly similar as well. And this is another place where Reliance Reliance's low price, high distribution strategy becomes absolutely brilliant. Because if you're feeding a community dog, you're probably not going to spend 600 to 1000 rupees on a kg of premium pet food, right? It just does not make economic sense for most people in our country. But what if you could buy a small affordable pack of decent quality food to give that dog a proper meal instead of leftover food from your house? That's exactly what Waggies seems to be offering. They have small and affordable pack sizes and at price points that make branded pet food accessible to this massive and untapped market. And if you think about it a little bit closely, this is classic Reliance strategy. Find the huge base of a pyramid that established players have ignored, serve them with affordable products, and build volume that eventually translates into market dominance. Like I said, it worked with Jio, where they bought smartphones and data to hundreds of millions of people who could not afford it below. It's currently being tested with Campa Cola, where they are targeting the value segment of the soft drink market, and now they are applying the exact same logic to pet food as well. But all that said and done, this is definitely not going to be an easy battle for Reliance. So I think it is very important that we also talk about the challenges here. See, pet food as a category itself is very different from a category like telecom or beverages, because when you're buying food for your pet, you are also buying trust, and that is very important. And there is a very specific reason why trust matters so much in this category. See, your pet cannot speak. They cannot tell you that they are feeling unwell. They cannot tell you if something does not align well with their stomach or if the food just does not taste good to them. So as a pet owner, you have to figure out all of this by just observing their behavior, their energy levels, and their digestive systems. And here's the thing, most pets do not handle changes in food very well. So if you suddenly switch their food brand, many of them would likely go through stomach issues, digestive problems, and general discomfort in life. It may take a few weeks for them to adjust to a new diet altogether. And that is why once most pet owners find a brand that works for their pet, they are extremely reluctant to change it. The risk of trying something new and having your pet suffer for many days is just not worth the potential savings for a lot of people. And honestly, this kind of care extends to everything pet related as well. Like I mentioned earlier with my wife's tote bag business, people will go back and forth 5 times just to make sure their pet's ears look right in the cartoon version. That is the level of emotional investment that I'm talking about here. So all of this creates an incredibly high barrier for new pet brands. Pet owners are naturally cautious, and rightfully so. And this is where established brands like Pedigree and Royal Canin have a massive advantage. They have been around for many decades. Vets recommend them, pet owners have seen their pets do okay with these products for years now, and there is general trust in these products. But Waggies, on the other hand, is a very new brand. There is no track record, there is no vet endorsement yet, there is no generational trust that is built up over time, etc. But what's interesting is that Reliance seems to have understood this challenge very well. That is probably why they've launched 100-gram trial packs at just 20 rupees. The idea seems to be simple: make it easy and cheap for pet owners to just try out Waggies without really committing to a full bag. So if the pet responds well, they might come back for more, and if not, they've lost just 20 rupees. I think that's a very smart and simple way to lower the trial barrier, but still, converting that trial into long-term loyalty is going to be a very big challenge anyway. Then there's also the question of how the competitive scenario will evolve over time. See, like I mentioned earlier, Nestle is already competing at a similar price point with their lineup called Drools, and Mars, with its 70,000 plus retail touchpoints and decades of brand equity with Pedigree and Royal Canin, is obviously not going to give up market share to Reliance so easily, right? So if Reliance does start gaining traction, you can definitely expect all of these companies to fight back very strongly. They might launch even more affordable variants, they might increase their presence in Kirana stores, they might double down on vet partnerships and endorsements and whatnot. But all that aside, I'll tell you what I find most interesting about this entire situation. Look, when you zoom out slightly and you look at what is happening, you will realize that Reliance is not just entering the pet food market, they are betting on a very big shift in Indian society. They are betting that pets are going to become more and more central to Indian households. They are betting on the fact that the way we think about pets, where we treat them as family members rather than just animals, is going to become even more mainstream going forward. And they are betting that as this happens, the market for pet related products and services is going to absolutely explode. And honestly, looking at the trends right now, it is very hard to argue with that bet. Every year, more Indians are choosing to have pets, and every year, more spending is going into pet care. And if there's something that Reliance has proven for many decades now, it is that they know how to identify long-term structural trends and position themselves early in that. Now, whether Waggies specifically succeeds or not is a different story, but the thing is, Reliance is in the game, and once they are in, they usually do not leave without making a significant impact. That's all I have for you in today's video. If you found this analysis interesting, please do hit the like button and and subscribe to my channel for more such business and marketing breakdowns. And if you are a pet owner or even somebody who feeds community animals, I would love to know in the comments what brands you currently use and whether you would be willing to try out a new brand if the price point was right. Oh, and by the way, if you're curious about those personalized pet tote bags that I mentioned earlier in the video, I will leave a link to Earthsafe bags in the description, so feel free to check it out. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and bye-bye.